Hi guys, my name is Nancy. If you are convinced that one cannot be married 3 times by the age of 19, here I am. And believe it or not, I'm planning my 4th wedding at the moment. But let's start at the beginning. Maybe my story can serve as a lesson for you. I met Willie when I was 17. He was the love of my life. At least that's what I thought then. During my graduation year, I was hired as a part-time assistant at a small local grocery store. I did it because I wanted to feel independent from my parents, who restricted my pocket money and treated me like I was their property. Willie was a senior cashier at this store. We spent our shifts working together. He was so charming with his multicolored locks and torn t-shirt. Also, he was very open-hearted and told me his story honestly. He was raised in an orphanage and had lived on his own from a very early age. At 15, he moved to our town and met Stan, his best friend, who always supported him. Willie worked on various jobs, but his dream was to become a professional photographer. Stan and Willie were both 22 when I met them. Soon, Willie and I became a couple. We spent a lot of time together. Stan and Willie were roommates, and we started to all hang out together. I felt very comfortable with them. We had our own special, wonderful world, just for the 3 of us and their doggie. They had a dog named Scotty. We watched movies, played video games, and enjoyed life. Then one day, I invited Willie for a dinner at my family's house to introduce him to my parents. The dinner was a disaster. My parents were very conservative people, and they disliked Willie right away. They asked rude questions about his childhood, education, and finances. My father treated him very condescendingly. They had an argument, and Willie left the dinner early. My parents told me that he was not the right match for me, and that I should get this nonsense out of my head. They demanded that I go to the local college and get some boring, respectable job before even thinking about romance. They criticized his appearance, his hair, and his style. I got very angry and ran away to Willie that evening. We decided to move in together despite my parents' protests. I was already 18 by that time. It was such a great time. I finally dyed my hair pink to match my boyfriend, and after a while I realized that I was pregnant. When I told Willie, he proposed to me, and I said yes, of course. We loved each other. We organized a nice, small wedding, just for our close group of friends. My parents had no idea about the wedding. Stan walked me to the altar instead of my father. I was very happy to start a new chapter in my life. After the wedding, the grocery store where we both worked was closed. Some fancy developers decided to build another mall in place of that building. We lost all of our sources of income and ran out of money. Willie had to push away his photography ambitions and agreed to take any side job he could get. He was really exhausted, and we started to have more fights. Then I made the big mistake of telling my parents about the pregnancy and the wedding. I went over to my parents' house for dinner. I told them the truth, hoping that they would be glad to provide any help to their future grandchild. But they were furious and cruel. Especially my mother. She was only interested in providing financial support to me if I would get rid of the baby. I left their house in tears. 3 months after the wedding, Willie suddenly came home in a very excited mood. He just received a new job opportunity on a cruise ship as a photographer. But the work was seasonal, and it was a worldwide cruise. He had to leave in 2 months and be away from home for 8 months, traveling through different continents. On the one hand, I was very frustrated that he wouldn't be there for me during the childbirth. But on the other hand, it was a great opportunity for him to develop his skills as a travel photographer. He was so excited to finally get his dream job. He really deserved that opportunity. Later that evening, we had dinner with Stan and discussed what had happened. We only had one problem. Willie was to receive the bulk of the money afterward, while I needed health insurance immediately. We could not rely on my parents, of course, and Willie didn't have parents. That's when Stan suddenly suggested his crazy plan. He is a software developer and has really good medical insurance for spouses. He told us a story about one guy from his work who had to marry his pregnant immigrant girlfriend only because she didn't have her own insurance yet. And it worked. So the guys came up with a plan. Willie and I would divorce, and then Stan would marry me so that I could get the medical treatment and not have to worry about any bills. We still had enough time to proceed this plan, but we had to hurry up. This is how my first marriage ended. 5 weeks later, I was standing in a registry office with Stan. In 10 minutes, I became Stan's wifey. I was in my 5th month and my belly was already noticeable. The office workers congratulated me and Stan, and we both laughed. The only guest invited to our wedding was Willie. He looked very confused, but we all had fun afterward and celebrated my 2nd wedding. And then Willie left to go on the ship. He left me with Stan and the doggie. First, I missed him very much, but then I focused on my preparation for childbirth. Stan was very kind to me the whole time. We got a chance to get to know each other better. It turned out that we had so much in common. We liked similar music, movies, and food. My fake husband had become my best friend. He studied maternity training courses with me, and we had a lot of fun. Willie called me sometimes, but he was really busy. At least that's what he told me. When the time came, I gave birth to my beautiful daughter, Stacy. Stan was there for me the whole time. I was very grateful. When I was laying in the hospital with my daughter, I texted my parents, but they never showed up. Only friends and Stan. We had a Skype call with Willie. When he saw the baby, he was so touched that he started to cry. I had never seen him so happy before. When we took Stacy home, I had some sort of postpartum depression. Stan took care of me and kept my spirits up. It was hard and unusual to raise a baby, but I felt blessed. And one evening, he suddenly told me that he loved me from first sight, and he knew that it was wrong, but he just couldn't help it. I was surprised. To be honest with you, I had romantic feelings for Stan too, but I never allowed myself to fantasize about him because it would have been a huge betrayal. At the same time, I was madly in love with Willie, and I missed him so much. I hugged Stan, but then I asked him to forget about this conversation. He said he would always be there for me whenever I needed him. And then, unexpectedly, Stan's parents, who lived outside the city, called him and asked why their only son forgot to mention that he was married. His mother was filing some property documents at a bank, and they told her that her son was married. In a few hours, they were knocking on our door. That was a disaster. We had to explain the whole thing to them, but their reaction was surprisingly calm. They really enjoyed spending time with Stacy, despite the fact that she was not their granddaughter. They started to help us take care of Stacy sometimes, which I appreciated a lot. Willie came back when Stacy was 5 months old. I was very glad to see him. He had changed, though. He cut his hair, got tan, and he looked and talked differently. By that time, Stan and I had already filed our divorce papers so that Willie and I could get married again as soon as he arrived. We had a beautiful wedding, quiet but nice. Only this time, Stan didn't walk me to the altar. My feelings for him were too jumbled, so I asked him to find an excuse to skip the wedding and to move out from our shared apartment, which he did, and he took away our dog too. Willie took me and Stacy on a short honeymoon to the Bay. He was glad to finally meet his little daughter. He took our pictures and we enjoyed our first vacation together. The first one and the last. After we got back home, I began to notice some oddities in Willie's behavior, strange secret calls and mystical disappearances. Obviously, he was hiding something from me. And then one day, I saw a text message preview from Bobby. Bobby texted Willie that he was waiting for him and sent a selfie of a beautiful woman making an air kiss. When Willie returned from his run, I asked him directly what was going on, and he told me the truth. He met this woman on the ship and they'd had an affair during the cruise. They continued their relationship on land and guess what? That girl got pregnant too. They were already expecting when he married me. I was just destroyed. Not only did he cheat on me while I remained faithful, he lied to me all this time. He married me again for whatever reason, because of guilt, I guess. And I had to push away my beautiful and loving friend Stan. And for whom? For some lying cheater? He wasn't my beloved Willie anymore. It was so dramatic. I told him that he felt like a stranger to me and I kicked him out. I noticed that it was hard for him to leave his daughter, but not as hard as it could be. I mean, he barely knew Stacy. Obviously, he was in love with that woman and used this situation as an excuse to escape. Later that evening, Stan called Willie and talked to him like a man and like a friend. The next day he showed up. Stan brought flowers, a toy for Stacy, and told me he wanted me to become his girlfriend. And this time, for real, I said yes. Because during all this craziness, I realized that Stan was my true soulmate. Now I'm in the middle of my divorce proceedings with Willie, and I'm already engaged to Stan. Engaged to Stan.
Hello, I'm Ross, and I am a living contradiction. I'm a black albino. I have white skin, blonde hair, and hazel eyes. I can't be exposed to the sun and have very poor vision. No one predicted a happy life for me when I was born, but my aim in life was to prove that they were all wrong. My first and most obvious problem is that I'm nearly blind. I have constant rapid eye movement and can't read anything without a lens. And I have problems with depth of vision and hand-eye coordination. When I was born, doctors and social workers prepared my mom at once that I most probably would have the same limitations as blind people for my entire life. Apart from that, I had to face other difficulties. While I was growing, I was very lonely. It's all about stereotypes, but I came from a black family in the Black District, and I had a mixed school. And even if it doesn't sound fair, at some point you needed to be either with black guys or with white guys. Where did I belong? Unfortunately, black kids supposed I was white. With my white skin and blonde hair, it's quite logical. And white kids turned me away because, in fact, I was black. This left me totally alone. No friends, no guys to hang out with, and nearly no identity. I had to adapt. The good thing was I was never bullied. I was so obviously different from everyone else that there was no point in underlining it even more. There was another side. All the teachers knew that I had very poor vision, and feeling sorry for me, they tried to make my life easier. Too easy for my taste. For example, I was always the last one to be asked, even if I was quite good at studies. Maybe they thought that it was hard or scary for me to talk in front of everyone. But you know, as soon as no one was actually mean against me, at some point when I was growing I wanted to be more socialized. You remember, no one accepted me as equal. But I thought that maybe sports might be something that I could do that would unite us. But what sports could I do? My PE teacher made me do something very simple separately from the others. Some basic fitness, nothing really exciting. While all the others were playing football, basketball, or other team games I was excluded from. However, once I decided that the time had come to be integrated, I asked my PE teacher, "Could you let me play with everyone?" The game was very simple, something like football or rugby, but very simplified. Nothing I couldn't manage, in fact. So the coach was in doubts for just a second and said, "Why not? Give it a try at least." I saw the sour expressions of my teammates, but I ignored them. At the first whistle, we started running, and my teammates took the ball. It was big and red. I didn't have any problem seeing it, but unfortunately I had some problems with depth, which means I wasn't very good at defining distance between myself and the ball. So the guy in front of me passed me the ball. I saw it perfectly, but didn't calculate well, and stopped it with my face. Everyone was laughing, and I was as well. It was really funny. The PE teacher wanted me to stop, but I insisted I retry. After a couple of attempts, I was much better and managed to catch the ball and pass it on to my more athletic classmates without any problems. And what's more important, I felt accepted to the group and enjoyed pushing the limits I was in for my entire life. That ball game changed my way of thinking. I stopped waiting passively to be accepted and took initiative to become more social. Sports became my way out of it. I played rugby and soccer and broke quite a number of bones in judo. I knew I wasn't born to do those things, but I didn't want to live the destiny that was predicted at my birth. I wanted a full life like everybody else. I found my first friends with sports. It turned out there are lots of people who don't care whether you are black or white, and cheer you even if you are not very good at sports. After a couple of years, I had a group of 4 friends who cared a lot about me. It was a pleasure I couldn't dream of when I was small. And when I was 15, they started talking about finding a girlfriend for me. I mean, I didn't have any illusions about being handsome, but my friends insisted they would definitely find a girl for me, because they all had girlfriends and I was the only single one among them. One day, one of them was approached by one of his neighbors who asked about me. It seemed that she liked me. Cool. The only point they said was that she had very poor vision, like me. I didn't care. First, we would understand each other better, and then I would scare her less with my looks. So my friends organized my first date. The girl was hilarious. We were laughing all the time. She was so funny. I also was amusing. I thought that we had chemistry between us. The only strange thing was that she didn't ask me about what it was like to be a black albino. If you see a person like that, it's so natural to ask questions. I decided to ask her. Maybe she just didn't want to offend me. When I asked her, she looked puzzled. What do you mean, albino? Are you both black and albino? I just thought you were white. I have poor vision, you know. It was so funny. We both started laughing like crazy. Now I have a wonderful girlfriend and the coolest friends on earth. You remember the limitations I was given at my birth? No way. Of course, the life of a black albino is not easy from a medical and social point of view, but it's all about attitude. As soon as I decided that I don't need any pity or limitations, I indeed stopped needing them. And it was the first huge step I made towards happiness.